It's back for round two. This is the KKMoon something cheap Android Auto head unit. Now, I originally reviewed this a year and a half ago, and it was surprisingly functional. And since then, it doesn't appear that they've changed much of anything. We have the same tragic Photoshop job on the outside of the box. Still weighs absolutely nothing. Let's pop her open and take a look. A lot of people asked for a follow-up video on this, but I actually got rid of the car that I had installed the original unit into, got a new one, and didn't need it anymore. So I am actually friends with the people that now own that car. The head unit's still in it, still working fine. We also put one into one of my workmates' cars, and it's been working there for a little over a year without any real issues. Let's pop the thing out here. Come on out, don't be shy. There we are. And same old, looks familiar. So let's give a quick tour of the unit here. Up front, we have autofocus. Come on. There we go. Up front, we have buttons. We have power, home, skip left, skip right. We have a reset notch. We have a micro SD slot, microphone hole, and a dial/button thingadoodle. And then over here we have the 7-inch capacitive touchscreen you'll be using most of the time. I believe it has a resolution of like 1024 by 600. Going around sides, same mounting holes, just stick it into your double DIN adapter. Up top we have the wiring diagram. And then around back we have a flurry of ports. We've got a camera in, we've got video inputs if you want to watch standard definition content on a tiny screen at a weird angle in your car. You can do that. There's a line level sub out and left and right channel outputs. In my old car, I had a backup camera and a powered sub hooked up to this. Worked just fine. We've got antenna input, USB input, and our harness slot over here. That's about all there is to it. Again, weighs nothing, but it really doesn't need to. It's just a screen and pretty much one board inside, and that's it. Also in the box you get a USB breakout cable. Only one of these can be used for your phone. The other one you can plug like a USB flash drive with songs and stuff into. You also get a tiny remote control. Don't use this. Throw it out. It sucks. Then you also get the wiring harness for it. Let's have a quick flip through the instructions here. We have troubleshooting lifts for dealing with various phenomena, I guess. So that is helpful, I suppose. Right now, this is going for $157.99 on TomTop's website. I paid $140 something when I actually ordered it. It goes down as low as like $125 if you keep an eye on it. So if you're wanting one of these, just keep an eye on it and then grab it when it's cheap. All right, let's go stick this thing into the Miata. All right, here we are in my 04 Miata. You can see that I've got the radio installed right here. I've actually been testing it for a couple weeks at this point, and if you are using Android Auto, I want to jump straight to the snafu and not waste any of your time. I got it to work just fine with my LG V20 running Android 8. It's worked fine with a OnePlus 6T running Android 9, but I cannot, for the life of me, get it to work with my Essential phone running on Android 10. So if you're here for Android Auto, your mileage may vary, but don't click off quite yet. I've actually bought another head unit off of Amazon, and I will be testing that one out, so look out for that video. If you're here for CarPlay, however, CarPlay seems to work just fine. I've tested it on this iPhone SE, as well as the 10R, one of the new ones. So let's fire the car up here, or turn on the accessory power at least, and take a look at the radio's built-in software to start off with. Now, it turns out that this actually matches what's in the instruction booklet better than it did when I initially reviewed this almost 2 years ago. To my surprise, they've actually updated all the software on here. Now, let me pause this. I've loaded up some YouTube audio library tracks on here for testing purposes. Now, the eagle eye among you might have already noticed that this camera right here is running at 60 frames per second, and that's because when I first turned this on, I was shocked to discover that all the animations are buttery smooth. I mean, look at this. Look at that. So they have actually changed this here. And check this out, check this out. actual usable settings. Look at that. So let's take a quick walkthrough here. We have our standard Bluetooth connectivity. You can use it for music or phone calls. Nothing too special there. The ringtone when it rings no longer makes your ears bleed. So that is a improvement over before. We have our FM radio, which I am going to mute because I don't want to get exploded off of YouTube. Standard FM tuning there, nothing special. It works fine in this car. One thing I should note is that the volume adjustment on here, one is way too loud. So what you might want to do is go into the equalizer and turn everything down there to compensate. You can also play, let me shut that up. You can also play music off of an SD card, which is what I typically do when I'm not using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. So if we pop over here, I've loaded up some tracks from the YouTube audio library, and it plays them just fine. This will actually play back FLAC audio files, so if you're into that, it'll play them. The head unit itself doesn't have exceptional sound, so you're not going to be getting the full advantage of the FLACs, but it will play them back nonetheless. You can see that the browser here has gotten an overhaul. Turn that off. So if you have folders organized here, it'll list those out for you to use. Here are the two main headlines of this unit. Let's skip over those. We'll come back to them in more detail later. If you have a composite video in, you can use that here. Like I mentioned before, I had the old version of this head unit and I had a backup camera in that car. That worked just fine. I also had a powered subwoofer with an amp that also worked. Let's dig into the settings here and see what we have. You'll notice, if you've seen my previous video, there is no, oh god, it beeps. Well, it does beep, but you can actually turn that off this time. Let me have the volume on. The beep is still terrible, but we can just turn it off. Look at that. Look at that. You can also choose the animations. I just left mine on Zoom 1, which is the default. It looks pretty fine. It looks like there's an animation that plays if you have a backup camera, which I do not in this car. Touch calibration. You can change some settings on the tuner. If you have wheel controls, you can program them here. I believe it just uses the old style analog setup though. You can lock it. There's some grayed out stuff for navigation. If we go to sound, we have a, 13 band parametric equalizer right here. So you can see that I've turned most of the things down to compensate for volume level 1 being super, super loud. There is this annoying screensaver right here. So that's on by default, and it just shows a big analog clock and a speedo that doesn't work. So if you get this, turn that off. It's dumb. And you just have language, time setups, that sort of thing. More grayed out settings for GPS stuff and version information. All right, that's the basics of the actual head unit. It's, even without Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, it's a pretty decent, cheap little head unit on its own right. So let's start off with Apple CarPlay and have a look here, shall we? Well, this iPhone is not taking my T-Mobile SIM, so we're just going to roll with Wi-Fi. So let's pop over here to CarPlay, plug the phone in. And there we are. It says CarPlay right here on the phone. And you can see that everything is here on the screen. Now, unfortunately, unlike the main interface, CarPlay and Android Auto only run at 30 FPS. That said, it is a pretty consistent 30 FPS, so it's not that bad. Now you can see here, one of the things they have fixed since the previous version is when you're in AA or CarPlay, you can actually see the volume adjustments. So let's pop up some sample music here from YouTube. There we go. So the sound quality, like I said, isn't super great on this head unit. It's decent enough though. We can try out Siri here. What's the forecast for today?
One moment. It's currently foggy and 39 degrees in Avon. Expect cloudy skies starting in the morning, then rain tonight. temperatures are heading up from 39 degrees to 57 this afternoon. My weather data is provided by the Weather Channel.
Hey Siri, give me directions to the nearest Home Depot.
The closest one I found is Home Depot RLC on Perry Road in Plainfield. Let me know if I should call one of them or get directions for you.
There we go. So Apple Maps working just fine here. Obviously not going to actually drive with this.
Head west on Great Lakes, circle west.
Yeah, so Apple CarPlay working just fine. You can even use the new split view right here. That works A-OK. Really, once you're into CarPlay itself, the experience is pretty much the same as you would have with any other CarPlay system. Let me turn that off. Yep, so pretty responsive. The only microphone you have for making calls and voice commands is this tiny little pinhole here. There isn't a way to connect an external microphone. So if you're on a phone call, you do kind of need to lean over and talk into it. Other than that, perfectly fine. Let's try out Android Auto on the old LG V20. Alright, here we are in Android Auto. I did also get this working on a OnePlus 6T. That's my dad's, so I don't have it here with me right now. Now, one thing I noticed with Android Auto, and I'm not completely sure if it's just me seeing things, it seems to be stretched horizontally a little bit. Like, the circle home button here looks slightly ovalish to me, so I think there may be some sort of aspect ratio issue here. The LG V20 is not the fastest phone around, so it does stutter a little bit more here. Under playlists. You are. Oh, there we go. Yep, so working just fine here. We hop on over to Maps. You can kind of see the issue where this is too loud, even at volume level 1. I'm having to talk pretty loud over it. Google Maps working just fine. Quick reminder, this does not have its own GPS antenna, so it will be using the one on your phone. You'll want to put it somewhere where you will get a decent GPS reception while driving. Yeah, pretty standard fare here. Let's try out the Assistant. How's the weather?
It's currently 40 degrees with fog in Avon. Today, it'll be cloudy with a high of 59 degrees and a low of 40 degrees.
All right, let's wrap this up. So, if you're wanting to use this thing with Android Auto, I would say hold off for now. I've got another head unit that I bought off Amazon for $169 that we're going to try out. And with that coming from Amazon, we have the benefit of customer reviews, 2-day shipping, and a proper return policy if it doesn't work out. If you're wanting to use CarPlay, go for it. I mean, it goes on sale pretty cheap, pretty often, and CarPlay seems to work pretty much perfectly with it, so that's hard to beat. So on that note, I give this thing a dubious thumbs up with a giant asterisk of probably not if you're on Android Auto. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video.